right, guys, what's up? Joined here with Colton Anderson. And I met Colton, well, this is the first time we've ever talked. Oh, I guess we talked on the phone once, but through Structure U. It's where I came into contact with him at. And, dude, we talked on the phone. Incredible story. I'm excited to talk to you because I don't really know all the details yet. But, you've shared some good stuff in Structure U, and I love it. I'm glad you're part of it. And I knew kind of with what part of your story, you had some weight loss and like you're just a fit dude. I see some of your stuff on social media. I'm like, let's talk to this guy because it seems like Structure U is kind of going like towards fitness and stuff like that. And I'm open to anything, but there's guys losing weight, and like you talked about, you've lost weight and you've kept it off now for a while. So I think that a lot of guys, once we lose that weight, for me personally, I used to hit that goal of, well, I'm going to hit 180. But then once I hit 180, I would just skyrocket back up. That same day, I'd probably be at 10 more pounds because I'd eat pizza and ice cream that night, So like you, like now that I'm getting more fit and keeping it off, like it's sustainable and it's cool. So Colton, introduce yourself to us. Let's hear it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Like you said, my name's Colton. My day job, or what my calling, I work with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Been going on, it'll be 2 years in January now, so love doing that, getting to work with area coaches and athletes, and just leadership and growing there. But my story started way back, like Mike mentioned, a weight loss journey through college, and love to share that with you guys today, and just kind of the things throughout it. And Mike, interrupt, ask any questions, because sometimes I forget stuff or don't go into detail with areas you want.
Before we even start the story, now you fellowship through Christian Athletes, is that what it is?
Yep.
What is that?
So it's an organization. We're a non-for-profit, and we work within. So our mission statement is to and through the coach. So we want to have access to the coaches. They're the influencers. Mm-hmm. I had some great coaches in my life. I also had some not great coaches in my life. Whether we accept it or not, the saying that carries the most weight is "Coach says." The kid comes home and he goes, "Hey, mom, dad, coach said this." Right? That has a lasting impact on kids. And so, as coaches, we wanted them to understand the influence that they have, even at a young age, even middle school, high school age coaches, and then we work all the way up through college coaches, professional level. We do a lot of leadership development. It's really great. So helping coaches understand, the deeping and the lasting impact that they have on these athletes. And then hopefully, encouraging them and helping them grow in a relationship with Jesus Christ is the ultimate goal as well. So,
dude, that's incredible. And so my question is, do a lot of coaches participate in this? Well,
yeah.
So I asked because I watched Last Chance U.
Sure.
All those coaches need Jesus. Like,
yeah.
Gosh, I feel like they're setting terrible examples to these young kids who are so impressionable at that, especially at that age. It's like, oh man.
Sure, yeah, and it's interesting when you come in with the cross, and we don't want to necessarily come in and ask a coach to change their behavior and walk in and be like, hey, you can't be cussing and yelling at your players, right? We want that to come from a growing and an understanding of how to coach, right? If you can get players to play out of love instead of power and fear, I think you can be much more successful. And we want our coaches to be competitive, and so. Having conversation, building relationship with coaches is number one, and then we can offer things that aren't faith-based in their organic form, right? We do a 3-dimensional institute, helps coaches understand the impact that they have, not just knowing the fundamentals, but how do you coach the mind and the heart of your players? How do you ask those tough questions and build those relationships? And in that, a lot of those principles are biblical, right? Yes. The greatest example we had was Christ. And a lot of these things that we're asking coaches to do is to look at how are you coaching, and does it model, here's a great example of how Christ led his disciples and how he called them, right? And so just asking those questions and building relationships to then be able to focus, in everything we do comes back to the gospel. So this is why we want to coach this way, right? We want to have more influence. We ask tough questions of coaches, which are great for these guys in Structure U and beyond to think about is, we ask coaches, why did you get into coaching? What does it feel like to be coached by you? And then, what do you want players to say about you at your funeral? So to think about those questions just from an impact of as a person, how does it feel to be around you? How does it feel to be, to be a son or a daughter of yours? How does it feel to be a coworker?
Those are great questions.
Yeah. Tough questions. Very, very tough, so. But good reflection, good time to spend it and look in the mirror. So that helps keep you balanced throughout the day, and just keep a good vision and a focus on what you want to do.
That's awesome. Well, that's really cool, man. Good for you. I like to hear that stuff because I never even knew that
Hmm.
was even a real thing. So that's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
All right, let's
enjoy
jump
it.
back in. Let's jump back into the start,
Yeah.
Colton.
So played football. I love football ever since I was little. 3 years old. Slept with football. I used to cheer on the Seahawks. My dad's a big Seahawks fan, so I used to sit there and cheer as they would throw an interception back in the early 2000s, and he'd be like, "That's not a good thing." I'd be like, "Yeah." So love football. Never was the most talented, size or height or weight or anything like that, but just became a student of the game at a young age. Even in high school, there was a rotation on defensive line, um, things like that. So never was the star or anything, but got the opportunity to go play at a small Division III school. I just knew I wanted to play football. I didn't care where it was. I would have
Yep.
played in the backyard somewhere. So got in there, and I think it helped when you get into college. There's a something that's hard, and if there's any kids out there that are studs and you're getting ready to go to school, be ready to eat dirt for a year or two. I think that was the hardest part for kids that I played with that got to go on to play. They were so used to being the star, and then you have to really go right back to the bottom of that totem pole. And so really just became invested in trying to perfect my technique and my game and be a student of the game. Got to start most of my games sophomore year and then most junior year. But as junior year rolled around, the great thing about college sports and even high school is there's always kids coming up. And in college, there's a thing called recruiting. And so the coach's job is to recruit someone better than you, and your job is to stay better than anybody they can recruit.
Oh, good point.
So brought in a kid from Florida, awesome guy, but was 6'3", big hips, awesome dude. Kind of saw the writing on the wall there that he had some natural talent, and he was also putting in the work as well. But we ended up splitting some playing time by the end of my junior year. And the way it works is you come in after season and you have an off-season meeting with your coach and his alignment. The first thing you always do is step on a scale. And so I stepped on the scale November 15th, and coach was like, "All right, so you're weighing 295. Like maybe we can get a little quicker, things that you can do you dropped a few pounds, those kind of things. Maybe that'll help you next year." Still thinking I'm center, still me knowing that, okay, this kid's going to take over next year if I don't get it together. So the thought in my back of my head was, if I can lose some weight, maybe I can move back to defense. He was pretty blunt. He was kind of a straightforward guy. He said, also, looking at your, what you're weighing now and your height, he's like, if you don't lose weight after football, like you won't make it to 40. And I was like, all right, thanks, dude. Like, appreciate that. So go home for Thanksgiving. Now I'm in college. I've been eating dining room food, for the last 4 months. Go home for Thanksgiving. Let's tie one on. Let's go. Mom's home cooking. My coach always said he never did anything on accident. And so we get back to campus the Monday after Thanksgiving, and I've got a text, "Hey, can you come to my office?" Okay. So I come to his office, and he goes, "Can you step on the scale for me?" I was like, "Dude, come on." So I was like, I stepped on that scale, and I had been home eating noodles and going out with friends and all that stuff, and so I weigh like 305. Like I put on 10 pounds in that weekend, right? And he's like, so I thought we talked about, trying to cut some pounds. I was like, I went home for Thanksgiving. Like what? He goes, if you continue on that trajectory, he's like, you're not going to be it. And I was just like, all right, thanks, dude. So kind of ticked off with them, left, was like, whatever. And then made a decision with myself that, when I went home for Christmas, I was going to watch it, and I was going to get really, really, I was going to make a commitment January 1st. And I had been my whole life, both of my parents were extremely heavy. My mom had some medical things that caused her to lose some weight, just some food allergies and things. So she had a dramatic weight loss in terms of like, she wasn't going to eat because she just couldn't.
Yeah.
So that was seeing her do that and make her own food all the time, and just kind of seeing like, oh, glad I don't have that issue, but realized it was possible with diet. And so in January, I remember going back. I drove back up to Chicago. I stopped at Taco Bell. I stopped at McDonald's. And I stopped at McHugh's. And I was like, this is the end. I was like, this is it. This is it. don't recommend having a last meal. That wasn't the right way to go about it, but that was in my head. So got back to school, and January 3rd, I just made the decision. I'm gonna really try to lose weight, and it started with just. I mean, I was heavy, so it started with just eating smaller portions, like just saying, hey, instead of 5 pieces of pizza, I'm gonna have one and a
Yeah.
salad, and then it became still doing football workouts, but like the cardio was always. I hated running. Cardio was always the worst part. So I just, made a commitment that I was going to walk an hour on a treadmill at an incline every day. So I would just go to the gym, walk an hour on an incline. And as you start to, it's like that flywheel, right? So as you
Yeah.
start to see results, and like in the first week, like you lost like 12 pounds, which is awesome,
Yeah.
right? But and so when you're a lot heavier, you can lose weight a lot quicker. Well, I started to fall in love with it. And so then it became, you start to see your body being able to do things, and you're not as hungry, and it just became like a process of, I'm not going out this weekend, I'm not going to eat that, I'm not going to do this, I have goals. And so by the time I left campus in May, I had lost 70 pounds, so I was down to 230. Yeah, so I lost 70 pounds from January to May. And the coaches were kind of like, okay, like I don't really know what to do with you in spring ball. So I was playing deep. I was still at center through spring ball. There's no contact or anything there, and so went home for the summer and continued to just chalk away at it. Started to fall in love.
Incredible.
Yeah, right. So in that, I was going to school to be a business major. Was doing financial advising. Internships, had sat for my Series 7 and securities and all that stuff, and thought that's what I wanted to do. And as I became more and more involved in this fitness world, I saw like, man, there's so much junk out there that, like, as I learned about it, I was like, man, like you can't just take a fat burner and look like it's work. Like, felt like there's just so much wrong in this industry. And so started to explore, training and supplement stuff and food and all that stuff. Well, I started following a guy named Corey Gregory, who was the founder of Muscle Farm. And he ended up losing some control of Muscle Farm when it went corporate, board, and it started to get away from what he had originally wanted it to be. And so he sat out his 1-year non-compete and then started Max Effort Muscle. Well, I followed all of his workouts on his website. I did his diet plan, which is a mixture of intermittent fasting and anabolic diet. So in a sense, basically my meals every day was a lean and a green at noon, a lean and a green at 6, and then a carb spike to raise your insulin levels in the evening to promote deeper sleep and then recovery. So a spike being like a banana and peanut butter at 9 o'clock, or, a sweet potato, or a protein shake with some bananas and stuff in there.
You really dove into this, didn't you?
Yeah. So
That's
I was
awesome.
like, you gotta remember, athlete mind, obsessive.
Yes.
So that was which is not always a good thing.
Yeah.
But for this time it was good. So I was obsessive, right? And so get up and work out and do that. And so when I went back to camp in August, I weighed 195.
Oh, that's incredible.
And I remember walking onto campus, and that satisfaction of people being like, who is that? Like, what are you going to play, right? Well, that felt really good until they kept me at center for the first 3 days, because I had been in the offense for 4 years. So wanted me to kind of pass that information on to some younger guys. So I felt like a freshman again. I was 195 trying to go through drills with 300-pound linemen. And I basically was the rag doll. Not proud of it, but when you're smaller, now that I never experienced that in my life, I understood where scrappiness came from.
Oh, yeah.
You can't beat them, like, in the play. You kind of take some shots. So a lot of my buddies and things, they were like, man, you got feisty all of a sudden, like scrapping after the play and stuff. So that was fun. But then we got moved to linebacker and special teams. And so while I never had played linebacker, I think my knowledge of knowing what the offense was trying to do from playing there for 3 years helped me a lot.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Whenever you decided to, you went from 305 to 195. Like,
yep.
in your head, were you thinking like this new center is taking my spot next year? So going into your senior year, were you thinking like maybe I need to work or lose this weight so I can go to a different position because you're still wanting to play? Or obviously
Yeah.
you probably weren't going to be at center anymore.
Yeah, I knew that was kind of the case. And I knew that I really thought my original plan was to try to cut down and get to like 250, 240 and play defensive end or defensive tackle. Um, but once I started losing, it became like, okay, I don't really care where I see the field at this point. Like, I feel so good and healthy.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to keep losing. And so that was the excitement there. And then when I came back, I kind of accepted the fact, like, even if I did move positions, there's guys that have been there for 4 years on the defensive line, and I'm not going to come in and start,
Yeah.
over those guys. And so I just wanted to find the field my senior year. I want to be able to wake up Saturday morning and know that I was going to be able to add value to the team.
And I just think, I think that that's an incredible mindset to have because, I mean, you're a college kid, and to humble yourself to say, I'm going to do this, because a lot of guys in a lot of situations would be like, we're at that age. We don't want to have to work hard for stuff. Not
Sure.
necessarily not work hard, but your ego kicks in. Well,
Yeah.
if that's the case, I'll just transfer to this other school or I'll do this. But I mean, you took it a whole nother step. That's incredible. You're like,
Yeah.
like you said, I want to be a part of this team. I want to be valuable. That's a huge lesson, especially at a young age, dude. I give you a lot of credit for that.
Well,
Because,
thanks. And I think
my
that
first,
goes back to, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think, well, I appreciate you saying that. And I just always had kind of been an old soul, like loyal. And so the idea of transferring just felt like not for some guys, that's great. For me, it kind of felt ugly. Like, I've been here for 3 years. Like, this kid's obviously better than me. Like, I just need to find a spot to be, like, to provide value and kind of be a leader there. And I think faith played a big role in it. I felt like God really put me there for a reason.
Yeah.
And
that,
so,
dude, that's awesome to hear because with being an athlete, our egos are usually way up here. Like, no, I'm not gonna, and I even now doing what I do with CrossFit, my ego gets in the way sometimes. I'm like, dude,
yeah.
relax. It's okay. You don't have to win everything, especially being new. I'm not super strong, so I'm like, these guys are clearly a lot stronger than you. So just chill out. So, I mean, at such a young age to get that ego in check, dude, that's incredible. Good for you.
Yeah, and it goes back to, to where's your identity? And that was hard for me after football too. And we'll get into a little bit, in a second, that football was taken away when I wasn't ready for it too after all that work. And so I struggled with my identity had always been in football, always. That was, I mean, year round, football,
Yes.
football, football. And so when you can pull your identity away from it, put your identity into what God's called you to do, or who He says you are, it changes everything. Because there was a time right after football. So fast forward, like I say, got to play special teams and a little bit of linebacker, and so we're week 5 now, and been seeing a lot of special teams play. Love just running down on kickoff and kick return, and so was happy to see the field on Saturdays. We were doing well as a team. We hadn't been very good for a long time, and we were having a good season. And just a drill in practice, just wrap up and tackle, and kind of a freak thing. My ankle got caught underneath a guy. I always kind of had sprained ankles and things, so I always got them taped, and full on. Got my ankle wrapped up underneath the guy, split the ankle tape. My ankle was completely broken.
No kidding. Oh man.
So that was week 5 of a 10-week season. And I struggled after that, asking God, like, okay, so I lost 115 pounds, but, whatever, 110 pounds, whatever it was. And now, like, I'm playing, I'm loving, Saturdays, and now you've taken away my other half of my senior season. And so I struggled with where my identity was because football was over. I mean, it's not like basketball or baseball where you can go play at the Y or get in a rocking chair league, right?
Yeah.
I was like, that was the last time I put on a helmet and pads was that Thursday afternoon. And so had surgery on my ankle, spent the rest of the year on a little scooter. But I made a commitment that, all right, like, this is a setback, but I'm not going to gain a whole bunch of weight in this. Like, I am healthy, and like, I can come back from this stronger, and I can use this platform now that I have, like, to help other people, right? Because how many college you look at and you're like, oh, gain the freshman 15. College is a time where everyone blows up. It's like, no, like I lost over 100 pounds in college while, friends are still going out and partying and there's still food from the dining hall. So there's a way to do it. You can go into the dining hall and you can eat to lose weight, right? And so that was kind of the basis there. Once that season ended.
Yeah, dude, that's incredible. It sucks that it was taken from you, but it's never our plan.
You're right.
But
Right.
I didn't even know we were going to go here, but it makes a lot of sense when we talk about identity and where do we find our identity, and usually it's in your occupation. Like, well, you ask somebody when you first meet them, oh, Colton, so what do you do for a living? Like, and that's where we find our identity. And for a long, long time, like I've just been, for me personally, I'm a power washer.
Mm-hmm.
And then so now as I transition and I'm learning about my identity, like what does it mean to be a man? Who do I want to be when I look in the mirror as a man? I'm not a power washer. So
Mm-hmm.
if somebody asks me that question, I'm like, how deep you want to go? You ready to dig in? But no, that's awesome. So like now that you're, how many years out of college are you?
I am, oh geez, 4 years out of college. Four.
So now what's your identity now?
Yeah. So, coming out of college, my identity, I knew that I was wrapped up in fitness. And so I think I went from being a football player to saying my identity was then in fitness. Um, and that wasn't the right answer. My relationship, the coolest thing was my relationship with God grew so much through my physical transformation. I was transformed more spiritually, right? When you isolate yourself to lose weight, I had to say no to a lot of friends. And most of my friends were older than me in college. They were the senior, and so they'd all graduated. And my roommate got kicked off of campus that year. So I was living by myself in a dorm room. And especially after football was over, I didn't get to go to the spring workouts. There's kind of like that weird transition of now it's time to move on, but I still have another semester of classes. And so I was in this crossroads of what is my identity, and so just became enamored more with fitness and diet, and knew I wanted to go and learn from that Corey Gregory guy. I didn't know how I was going to get out there, but I knew I wanted to learn from him. I knew I didn't want to go into finance anymore. I couldn't imagine sitting at a desk; it would have drove me nuts.
Yeah.
And so I just started messaging him on Twitter every Monday. I had an alarm that I was going to send him a message at 4 p.m.
Dude, you were incredible. This is awesome.
So I messaged him every Monday for the entire semester. And it wasn't until April that I got a message back with another guy's number. And so I called this guy and I was like,
So what did these messages say?
Hey, I know you started a new supplement company. Are you guys offering any internships? I would love to just come out and learn from you.
Dude,
and so it was every time. And I would send him my transformation pictures of what I did through his programming. So in April, I graduate in May. In April, I get a message with the guy's name. Call it. He's like, yeah, we can have, we have a summer internship. It's unpaid. It's in Columbus, Ohio. We ask that you work out at the gym with us in the mornings. And so I was like, okay, cool. So it's old school gym in Ohio. It's one of the top 10 like hardcore gyms or whatever in America. And I was like, done. So I was like, what days it start? And he was like, May 8th. Well, graduation was on May 7th. So I graduate, and when everyone's going out, celebrating graduation, I had the car loaded down with all my stuff. Didn't have a place to stay. So I started messaging people that worked out at this gym. And one of the guys was like, you can stay with me. I have a 1-bedroom apartment, but you can blow up an air mattress on the living room floor. So for $100 a month, I lived on this guy's floor for 3 months and went out there, and we worked out every day at 4 a.m. It was the 4 a.m. crew. I see you getting up early, so props to you for that. Well, the house was about 40 minutes from the gym, so I'd wake up at 3 a.m. every day, go to the gym, go to the office, learn from this guy, supplements. I just became enamored with the products that they were using. Everything had to be natural. How do you ship stuff out? How do you do social media? How do you run podcasts? How do you do all this? And so did that for 3 months. And then realized, I'd learned so much and still felt like I felt like I wasn't being used the way God had intended. And this time I'm still growing so much in my relationship with God. And I had a great talk with Corey and appreciate him, a guy that has a huge platform and has worked with Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor and all these guys, to sit down with me and be like, hey, like, if you stay here and do some more unpaid, like, eventually you can come on staff and we'll pay you. But he's like, I feel like that's going to be empty to you to sit in a warehouse, package supplements, send them out. He's like, I feel like that there's a deeper calling.
Oh, dude, that's so cool.
So that was awesome, right? And so in that, I'm still struggling with like, okay, so what should I do? So I started a podcast called Faith in Training, bridging the gap between, physical fitness and spiritual fitness. Still felt like God was like, hey, that's not what I'm calling you to do. So I'm trying to get rid of that gut feeling of like, all right, God, I'm trying to do, I want this feeling to go away, that I'm not using what you've called me to use, right? And so I wrote a 30-day devotional, also called Faith in Training, where it taught, it had a 4-week workout plan with it. Because there's a lot of running in faith stuff, but there was no like just fitness and faith. And I feel like there's such a strong connection. We read in 1 Timothy 4:8, for physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for this life and the next.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to take care of what God gave me, but I also want to prepare myself for what's after this life, right? And so that's when this identity thing started to come into play of what is my identity. And so Corey, said, I think you need to go look at coaching. You love football. And so ended up putting my name out for some coaching positions, strength and conditioning. I'd gotten certified through Westside Barbell when I was out there. He'd done a whole lot of stuff. I felt like learning from the people that had went before was a lot better than just learning from a textbook.
For sure.
And so got an opportunity to go coach football in Fort Myers. And so was coaching at Evangelical Christian School, was loving it, got to have conversations at Christian school. So got to, open each lift in prayer, got to talk with the boys about that stuff. Our verse for the year was Hebrews, 12:11, that says, for discipline, while at times unpleasant, produces a righteous harvest for those that are trained by it, which I got tattooed on my chest too.
That's awesome.
That's been an awesome verse to stand by. So it's extremely disciplined in that.
Again, Hebrews what?
Hebrews 12:11.
12:11. All right.
Awesome. Yep. And so, that was, but still felt like, man, God, what are you doing? I still have this pit in my stomach. And so I was just praying that God just reveal to me where you want me to be. Cause I still just felt like I was kind of lost, And to get back to the answer to your question in a long runaround way was, I'd always placed my identity in what I did. I was a football player. I was an intern at this awesome supplement company. I was a football coach. And I just kept saying my identity was what I did. And so then when that stuff got taken away again, Hurricane Irma comes blowing through Fort Myers. And I end up coming home, and a guy at my parents' church knew that I was home for a couple weeks. The apartment got flooded, all that stuff. So I had to wait to go back down. So he asked me if I wanted to come help him roof. So I'm helping him roof. And he says, you should go to our adult Bible study tonight for college and career age.
So the roofing wasn't your calling?
No, that was not my calling. That was a workout. I did not work out those days. If I know there's some roofers in structure, you guys rock. Yeah. That is some work.
Yeah. That's a real work, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And so I was like, well, I'm home just for a few weeks, family's home. I'll see what's going on tonight. So total God thing, got home that Wednesday night and no one was home. I was like, where is everybody? So I ended up going to this adult Bible study, and it was on dating. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, that's great. But I get up at 4 a.m. and train myself, lift with the boys at 6, go and teach all day, then have practice, from 3 to 6. And then I'm in bed by 7 o'clock. So I don't know where you meet a girl in this. Like I'm married to the game. All right. Like it's X's and O's. And he, the pastor just said, talked about getting involved in a church, getting plugged in, and God will lead. And at this time I was really praying, like, God, if I'm just not supposed to be the type to get married and I'm just going to be single and just reveal that to me. Like I'll be okay with that. But just reveal it to me. Well, sitting across the table was a night shift nurse that just got back from a travel nursing contract in Nashville that said, so I work nights and I sleep all day. Where am I supposed to meet a guy?
Oh man.
And so we jokingly talked afterwards and ended up exchanging numbers. And she was from Charleston. I was from Mattoon. We'd never crossed paths before. Um, and then I was like, man, that's kind of funny. God, like, send me back to Florida now after I meet this cute girl. And came home for Christmas break and got approached by a guy about FCA and coming back into the area. And didn't want to leave, going back to the loyalty thing, didn't want to leave the school stranded. And so I said, I need to go back and pray about it and be sure there's a replacement that I felt comfortable with. And right away, the guy came in that I felt really comfortable. I was like, man, this is God all over this thing.
Yes.
And so moved back. And a year later, we got married. And so now we're back home and loving it back here. But yeah,
Dude, that's what an incredible story, man.
Right. And it's all God throughout it. Just trusting him in it and being willing to move when he said move. And a prayer throughout that I encourage people to pray. It's dangerous, but pray that God opens the doors that are supposed to be opened and just shuts the ones that you're not supposed to go through. Because I think that's the hardest thing was there's so many options that I had, and I just kept praying that God just shut down these other things so I'm not distracted. Like, because I wanted to stay in coach, like, and I knew, and so come back and get involved with FCA, and that, praise God, that feeling went away. I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be, and that's the biggest thing is if your identity is solely rooted in what you do, then your bad days fully define your day.
Yes.
And you sell yourself short when you say that you're just a power washer, right? Because you're a dad and a husband and a child of God, and right, your ministry is not just, you're a business owner, right? Your ministry can be to all these people, right? And so when we just define ourselves by what we do, then we're saying the other part of our lives then we're saying it's meaningless, right? And so, what we do isn't who you are,
Yes.
So,
dude, that's incredible. And, so last year when I started on my journey, because, and I give you a lot of credit, you are a young dude who's living this already. It took me 10 years longer than you to go to find, this thing. But that was my prayer, God, just open these doors that I need. Lead me wherever you want me. I'm willing to do whatever. Just lead me. And like you said, it wasn't easy. I remember the first Facebook Live I did, and I opened up, and so I had always been Party Mike. Like, I was the fun dude, getting the guys together, let's go party. And then to come out and say, this is where I'm being led. And, I've always been a guy of faith, but I'm not going to say that out loud because people will think differently of me. And so then once I started doing this stuff and being open, my identity was, I'm, like you said, I'm a child of God. I'm the best, absolute best husband I can be. I want to be the best father I can be. Like, that's where I'm finding my identity. And so I've had messages like, you used to be a lot more fun, Mike. Like, yeah, but my life wasn't fulfilling. Like, now I'm living a life that's fulfilled, and I'm, the life of freedom that I know, like, with this, and I don't want to go on this tangent, with the coronavirus, I haven't worn a mask. Why aren't you scared? I'm like, I don't find my salvation in the mask. I know if for whatever reason I get coronavirus and I die from it, if I die from anything right now, I know that where I'm going next, dude, I told my wife, I said, don't be sad. If I die, don't be sad. I know you're going to miss me, but I'm up there flying around doing circles, living life now.
For sure.
So, yeah,
That's
awesome. It's just, and good for you, man. What a young dude.
And I think too, when you get on these things and you talk and you share your story, something that I want to make clear is like, it's easy to sound like, oh yeah, like this is awesome. Like you lost 110 pounds, but there's there's not, every day is not great. You can put motivational stuff out, but like there's hard days, right? And I think that's the thing is like, we even look at Christianity as like an answer, like, oh, then my life will be all, peaches, right? Like life's hard. Like there's sin in the world, right? We're a broken people. And so in that, there's going to be brokenness and there's going to be hard days and there's going to be things that are challenges. And, am I the lightest that I ever was? No, but there's been sustainability, right? There's sustainability to stay below and still be able to enjoy things. Like I used to have a terrible relationship with food after all of it. Like look at like a cracker and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to gain 5 pounds. It's like now I can go out to dinner on Friday night with my wife and have go get an ice cream cone and not freak out.
Yeah.
Right. There has to be balance, unless like, you're competing for a show or getting ready for a meet, right? There's times for that. But I think it's important to realize that not every day is going to be great. But when you create those habits along the way, that your normal is healthy, right?
Yes.
Your normal is I work out. Your normal is I, reach for the greens and the meat. It's not reaching for the Doritos and the Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah.
Then those days that you do, it's not as big as a hit, because it's what's what is the majority of your life? What you spent doing? And I think the same goes, I think that's just where I wanted to say, your identity doesn't have to be wrapped into like your diet and fit. It doesn't have to be all consuming. You just want it to be a lifestyle, right? And that was the biggest thing for me, was creating it as a lifestyle and no longer calling it like I'm on a diet.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just eating for fuel, right? Eat to live, don't live to eat, which is very hard in this society. But yeah, I think that's an important part. And then going back to what you talked about, your identity being in Party Mike and people being like, you're not fun anymore. It's like, I was trying to fill this void when I was doing that, right? Like, I was the funny fat kid first time in college, like, as a heavier dude, like you could handle your booze a little bit. And so like, I was just trying to fill this void of like confidence of people watching me do stuff because it was funny or making fun of myself. It's because I didn't like who I was.
Yes.
And that's the hardest part, is when you realize like, why am I living this way? And then when people like are like, you're not fun anymore, it's like, no, like I'm having a blast now because I'm living life with what God's blessed me with and living it to the fullest. And I don't feel terrible tomorrow morning. And my answer isn't turning back to that, right? And that goes for all kinds of those things, like, drugs, alcohol, pornography, all those temporary joys that are like, that give you that release, that high. Yep. Like, then you have the guilt that comes after that that's so much worse. Like, I don't have to live with that guilt anymore of being like, I knew that was wrong, that I did that. Like, now I can be freed from that and I can live in abundance and give that to others. So it's like, maybe I'm not as fun, as I used to be, but I don't want to have the fun you're having anyway.
Exactly. That instant gratification of getting drunk tonight or any of that stuff, because it used to be too, whenever I would get drunk, I would just stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, the shame, the regret, or if it's looking at pornography, the shame, the regret, it's just the juice isn't worth with sustainability. Living a Christian lifestyle, it's like, it's sustaining it, because like you said, we're humans. We're not going to be perfect all the time.
Yeah.
And so, one of my favorite things is just progress over perfection. As long as I'm progressing, whether it is or whatever you want to use, as long as I'm getting better every single day, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, as Christians, we can look at it like, okay, God doesn't want us to have fun. It's like, He wants to protect us as our Father in heaven, right? And so it's like those things that I did that I thought were fun in the moment, like eventually hurt me down the road, right? They caused hurt or heartache or pain. And it's like, living in obedience is because it's just like a protective parent, right? Don't like look both ways before you cross the street. Don't eat too much candy. Like, it's because it's bad for you. But we want to pretend that we have the answers. And that sometimes gets hard. And so I think when we realize that those things in our world, that instant gratification, those things that, us Christians call sin or whatever it is, it's like, that's just us as creation rebelling against our Creator and saying, we know the right way. We know the right way. Like, our way's better than your way. And that's a dangerous game to play, because He created us. And that goes back to identity, right? Who better to get to know what you're supposed to do than the person who created you?
Exactly. We make life too complicated,
Right?
Yeah, just whenever I grab for the Bible, I'm like, just follow this book. I don't need any other books. Like, this is literally, it's got all the answers in it.
For sure. Absolutely.
But, well, Colton, dude, I appreciate you taking the time to join us, and I think that there's going to be guys get a lot of insight out of this and pick up some gold nuggets out of here. But, dude, thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, have a good day.
You too, man.